They said, well, your spine and your pelvis are full of holes and you probably have cancer. I had symptoms I think I probably didn't pay attention to because I was just so busy and overwhelmed getting my kids in order. I got a call and I was just in the car by myself, and the doctor was like, I've been trying to get a hold of you from this hospital in Montana and to tell you, you have holes in your bones and your pelvis. It didn't kind of register. Well, I'm Jenny Ahlstrom, and I grew up in San Jose, the Bay Area. I came to Utah to go to school, and then I ended up staying. I ended up working for IBM, got married. I have 6 kids. I have an amazing husband who's have been very involved. I don't know. I love music. I sing. I play the piano. I cook, and I love taking care of my family. And between my family and my husband and the foundation, I love exercise and I try to get some every day, but there's not much time. So I'm a multiple myeloma patient. I was diagnosed at the age of 43 in 2010. And at the time, our family was actually on a vacation. We had moved a year prior from Utah to Mexico. And we're trying to get 6 kids acclimated to a new language and a new culture and just everything new about that whole experience. My husband had been invited to launch the venture capital industry in the country, and so it was a big push, and we burned the boats, we sold our house, we moved down there. We didn't think we were coming back. And I had symptoms I think I probably didn't pay attention to because I was just so busy and overwhelmed getting my kids in order. But had like a rib pain that wouldn't heal and pain and other things, and so just kept getting pneumonia over and over again. Just thought, well, I'm just tired, but who isn't trying to do this? Ended up going back to Utah and to Montana, and I thought, well, I've had these symptoms for a long time, I might as well just go get checked. I got a PET scan on my kidney area because my kidneys were kind of bugging me. And they said, well, your spine and your pelvis are full of holes and you probably have cancer. And so it's time to go get seen by an oncologist. Yeah, so we had 2 weeks left before we were supposed to leave to go back to Mexico after the summer. And that was a bit of a shock. So,
I mean, you have this huge shift in your life happening. You have 6 children, also own career, husband's career, taking off, doing all these things. It is easy to explain away symptoms, right? And what your body's feeling.
oh, for sure. Because it was fatigue mostly. And the last pregnancy, I think I probably had myeloma for 3 years prior. And I actually think I had gotten it from a virus that I got while I was pregnant. And I talked to somebody from one of the pharma companies actually a couple of years into my diagnosis, and they said, oh, parovirus B19, like that has bone involvement. Did you know that? And I said, what? No, I've never heard that before from any myeloma doc or anybody. So I think that's probably what caused it. I never really felt the same. I didn't gain very much weight at all. I lost weight sort of while I was pregnant with the last one. So I knew something was wrong. I was highly anemic. And my doctor said, I'm going to hospitalize you because you're so anemic during this pregnancy. I'm like, you can't do that. I have 5 kids at home. Like, there's no way. So yeah, that and just, rib pain that wouldn't heal, and like kept going to the chiropractor. It was a total miracle. He didn't break a bone, like trying to adjust me and all that. No, ended up we were in Mexico and I had like blood in my urine for like 6 weeks, and I just kind of ignored it. And I'm like, I don't want to go to a clinic and try to explain that in Spanish to a doctor because, I'll just wait till we go back home. So And then the symptoms actually went away the day I went in. I almost didn't go in because I was like, well, it's gone. And good thing I did. So,
I know it's been, that was back in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's been a little while, but can you bring us back to that moment, how you were told about the cancer? And were you with family? Was your husband with you at the time? What was going through your mind, through your body?
I got a call and I was just in the car by myself. And the doctor was like, I've been trying to get a hold of you from this hospital in Montana. And to tell you, you have holes in your bones and your pelvis. It didn't kind of register. He's like, you need to go see an oncologist. But we had already been through a really aggressive cancer experience with my brother-in-law who had AML 6 years prior. And so the only feeling I remember having, I probably cried, but the feeling I remember having is, okay, if I do have this, then we're going to do things differently. And we did. So I ended up going to the same facility that he went to when he was first diagnosed, which was not an academic center, it's a local center. Had a very reputable oncologist see me. The oncologist really wanted to treat me like that Friday. He's like, okay, I'm going to start treating you on Friday. Don't worry, I'm not going to lose your hair. We'll maybe think about transplant later. Well, 6 years before that, my brother-in-law had waited way too long to get transplant, and he passed within a year. The ML was very aggressive. He caught it really late, and so we just, he kind of made the mistake of saying, well, don't go up to Huntsman because they'll have you doing tandem transplants. So of course, we hit the parking lot, and my husband gets on the phone with the doctor at Huntsman, who convinces us, just come up here. And the difference in number of patients that the oncologist locally was treating, even though he was a wonderful oncologist, he didn't even do a bone marrow biopsy though. Like before he said, I think you have myeloma. I'm like, you think, you think I have something? You want to start treating me on Friday? So we might want to get the testing done first. And I guess if that had been my only experience with cancer, I probably would have just said, sure, okay, I'll show up on Friday and you're just going to give me whatever you're going to give me. And then I wouldn't have had like any genetic features from my bone marrow biopsy, or I just wouldn't have had the information that I needed. And I'm so happy that he made that comment, because I went from a physician who was treating 5 cases of myeloma to 500 cases at the academic center. And that doctor had come from the kind of University of Arkansas Medical Sciences, they call it UAMS, and really had this tandem transplant protocol, which at the time was, the experts were fighting over single versus tandem transplant. And I just said, I'm young, I watched my brother-in-law die, I'm healthy, except for the myeloma, so just go ahead. And I had a high-risk feature, so, he kind of positioned it like, well, you have one shot at initial cure, and a certain percent of the patients can get cured, functionally cured, right off the bat. But if you wait and you go through several lines of therapy, that's not really that much of an option anymore. So just try that and see. And then we kind of had to decide immediately if where we were gonna live. Like, do we come back here and I get treatment? Do we bring all the kids back? Do they, am I gonna be immunocompromised? Is it going to be a problem having 6 kids coming home with germs, going into 2 transplants? We had like 2 weeks to decide, what are we going to do? So I ended up staying at my sister-in-law's house. We had actually prepared her house for David with like a filter and UV lights and like a really clean house room and room. And so I ended up staying there. One of my really good girlfriends was my caregiver. Paul went home with the kids, and he said, it's not hard to replace you. I just need a driver and 2 maids and and a cook. And so in Mexico, it's very easy to find household help. And so he got the help that he needed because he was still starting a business. And I got the support and the rest that I needed. I was gone for 6 months doing those transplants, but they were okay because they had the attention that they needed and the support.
Can you highlight, especially now that you know so much 12 years later, what that importance is, and what is that message to those who maybe don't know yet that difference? Maybe they're comfortable because they like their oncologist right now.
Well, of course, we see that all the time in the patients that we serve. Patients like, oh, my oncologist is so nice and I like them. And like the data shows differently. So the data shows that you might live 2 to 5 years longer if you see a specialist. The University of North Carolina has data on that. And so did the Mayo, I think it was the Mayo Clinic. Myeloma is a very nuanced disease. And you cannot, and with a lot of progress in this space over the last many years. I think there's been more progress in myeloma than probably any other cancer. So you look at like how fast things are moving and how nuanced it is, and how myeloma is not a single disease. There are different genetic features. Every patient basically has kind of a different type of myeloma and different types of myeloma inside the same patient. So like somebody treating, 25 different cancers, there's no way that as talented as they are and as hardworking as they are, and they're wonderful people, but am I going to put all my myeloma care? I might go get treated. So, and a lot of patients do this. They'll go see an academic specialist for some of their care definition, and then they'll take that protocol back and they'll say, okay, now I want to get it treated closer to home. And that makes sense. But the data did show that actually, if you are treated at the academic center, you do live longer. And because you're getting watched and you're seeing early signs of relapse and they're running the right tests and that kind of thing. So that's the number one thing I always tell patients is you could do one thing, find yourself a specialist. That's job number one.
Thank you for sharing that. And so you went through the tandem transplants, then you went through consolidation and maintenance therapy, which I know at the time it wasn't for a long term. You were on it for a couple of years. Could you describe a little bit of the regimen and then the shift off of treatment?
Yeah, I did a year of Velcade thalidomide Dex, which was kind of it was just a triple combination. So I ended up flying from Mexico to MD Anderson every week or every 10 days. I did that for a year, and I don't even know how I did that, but that was exhausting. And so I was kind of gone like another half a year, between the time I had to, because you got Velcade on day 1 and 4, and then you get a 10-day break, and then day 1 and 4. So I'd have to stay in Houston for 4 days. And then I did a clinical trial that had dexamethasone, which was like an insane idea now looking back at it, that I would have done steroids for another year voluntarily, but I did do that. And then I didn't do any other maintenance. So maintenance really wasn't a thing in myeloma at the time. And I was happy. The idea was like, let your body recover and your counts come back up, and don't be on, hit it hard. And in my opinion, with myeloma therapy, you're going to get therapy regardless of whether you get it hard up front or you get it over time. You're still getting it. So I might as well get it hard and then have a treatment break.
So you knew early on, maybe you could give a little color here, because for a lot of people, I think even the term itself, clinical trial, is just quite daunting and really foreign as a concept, but you were into it.
Yeah, I think I participated in 3 clinical trials as part of my transplant process. Well, I mean, that's how we advance research. So if we want to cure for these diseases, we have to step up and participate. And in cancer, there are no placebo. You're never not going to get treatment, right? So that's unethical, and the doctors would never do that. So they're looking ahead and they're saying, what else can we do to make it better and the treatment better? And they're looking for creative ways. And maybe another year of Dex is not the right answer. But we have so many open clinical trials in myeloma now. Back when David was diagnosed, 6 months in, they basically said he's out of options. He was in the ICU. He had incredibly high blood pressure, and his heart was just racing. And they said he's ready to die, and you're being mean to keep him alive. And Paul, my husband, he had done some research showing that he had CD33 protein on his AML cells. And he said, could you give him Mylotarg? Because that was a target, wasn't approved for his indication. And he couldn't at that point join a clinical trial. So we got permission to use it for compassionate use. And he lived another 6 months. Within 2 days, he was out of the ICU, breathing fine, on a stationary bike. And so that type of participation in research is necessary if we're going to advance the field. Now, if we don't care about a cure or whatever, then, we shouldn't think about it. But lots more kids join clinical trials with cancer because their parents are willing to take them anywhere. And as adults, sometimes it's like, well, is it convenient? Is it not convenient? You've got a job to think about or family issues or whatever. So it's a little more challenging sometimes. But you still should ask about clinical trials at every stage, newly diagnosed. Like, there are great myeloma clinical trials for newly diagnosed patients right now, especially if you're high risk. So we already know what your outcomes are kind of going to be. So why not try the extra stuff and try to get a longer remission? Yeah, sometimes people think about it as this last resort, but it's not. Like, if you wait too long, you just don't qualify and you're too sick and you can't join.
But in between the time, 2012, you got off treatment and then you were off for a few years. Can you talk about what that was like? And I know that you were having to, monitor your levels. What was the regimen of follow-up like? And how did you manage the mental health part of it, right? Sort of the anxiety of it.
Well, I handled the anxiety part of it by getting involved. And we just had this hypothesis that David's experience when he used the Mylotarg, that experience wasn't shared with anybody at Huntsman, any of his peers, and that drug took another 14 years to get approved as an indication for his type of disease. So, like, why? Why is it taking this long? And so we kind of took that idea. Well, if we could aggregate patient data and put it together, and if patients were willing to do that, we could come to a lot faster conclusions. But in the meantime, I realized, well, I don't have a relationship with the clinicians and I don't have a relationship with any of their patients. So let me just do things that I see a need for. Like, okay, I want to find a myeloma specialist. Why can't I find one online? Why isn't there some kind of directory that helps me find that? There wasn't. Like, why? It's so basic, it doesn't make sense. I wanted to understand and read news about myeloma treatment, but it was all scientific. And truly, I didn't understand it. So can we rewrite it and simplify it a little for the patient community, but they still understand that what the progress is and how to describe it. So I just decided, okay, we're going to create a foundation. We're going to fill some of these gaps. And there were very nice existing and supportive foundations in the myeloma space that were very well established, but there were certain things I felt like I needed as a patient that weren't being done. So, like, I wanted to join a clinical trial and I was kind of panicked, I'm going to relapse fast. This is not going to be a long remission. I don't know why I felt like that, but I just did. I felt this clock ticking all the time, like, okay, I got to get moving. We got to do something. And so I looked some trials up. I called 8 facilities. I got a call back from 2. And clinicaltrials.gov is a total mess. So, like, this is not easy for patients. And why is it this hard? So we started the podcast series interviewing investigators. And it was this nice blend because they wanted to share their research. They wanted to get patients into their trials. And patients wanted to know what was going on. So I built a website. I mean, I didn't know how to do anything, but I just decided I'm going to do it anyway. I have nothing to lose. And so I might as well. So I felt very unqualified. If you listen to the first couple of radio shows, I'm super nervous and I'm not smooth at all. And I don't listen very well to the doctor's answers. But, I've done like 158 shows now and it's fun. I enjoy talking to them and saying, why would a patient want to join this trial? What are you trying to accomplish? And who can join? And where's it open? And just understanding the science behind it. Because some of the new stuff comes out, it always has a number associated with it, and you don't even know what it does or is, especially if it's a new class of drug.
And you also, personally, you were also consulting doctors, right? You were wanting to understand your options for yourself, just in case at the point of where you're officially in that relapsed group.
Yeah, we started adding programs. I started meeting these investigators because I was doing that show once a week. Well, in 2016 or so, my myeloma started coming back. It was coming back really, really slowly. And, it was weird because I think 5 years out, I kind of was like, I stressed out for the first 5 years, like, oh, it's coming back any day, and then But it just helped to be serving people and not worrying about my own situation or my own condition. So I didn't really like hyper obsess about it or anything, because I was busy with my family and busy doing this, and it was little at a time and adding programs.
Quick,
But
quick question right here. Do you feel part of it was, really sort of arming yourself with more knowledge? Did you start to feel more control in a sense too? Or was it just that you were diving into something and focused? So it was sort of distracting you from thinking constantly about your own myeloma?
well, all of it, I think. So I think when you get diagnosed with something, you can do one of three things. You can say, I'm a victim. I have myeloma, poor me. You can swear at it. You can do all that. Like, it doesn't help. So I'm not sure why people do that, but they can be really angry about it. You can also be defined by it. Oh, I'm a cancer patient, and this is part of my new identity. I don't really think that has to be the case, but the third thing is you can look at it as a new opportunity. Paul in Mexico had a colleague, and he said, "Oh, I was telling him my wife has cancer," and he said, "Well, congratulations." And he said, "Tell me about that, because that's not really the normal response." And he said, my son died in a regular adenoid surgery. We ended up donating his organs. We started a foundation. We've done 80 organ donations now, and you are going to see the world in a different way. So it's like an opportunity for you. You have an opportunity to serve in ways you couldn't before. So after he said that, I understood what he was saying and why. And I look back on it and I think, oh my gosh, I've been able to grow so many skills and talents. I've been able to serve so many people. I've been able to build a team and do things I never ever would have done, like ever. So it's been, having myeloma is not fun, and it's still a mental game. I still get nervous when I go get my labs run and all that. But I've met the most wonderful people doing this, and I've taught my kids. They've watched growing up now, and some of them work at the foundation or have worked at the foundation. So I've been able to do this together as a family, and it's been an amazing opportunity for the whole family.